Of course. Here is a historical, factual story designed to be astonishing, informative, and interesting for a U.S. audience. The Phantom Army of World War II. Imagine you are a German soldier in March 1945, peering through binoculars across the Rhine River. For weeks, intelligence has been reporting a massive buildup of American forces. Now, you see it with your own eyes. Spread before you is the U.S. 30th and 79th Infantry Divisions, a force of over 30,000 men. You see endless rows of Sherman tanks, M10 tank destroyers, long-barreled artillery cannons, and fleets of transport trucks. You hear the unmistakable rumble of engines, the clatter of tank treads, and the distant shouts of officers. The invasion is coming, and it's coming right here. Your commanders, seeing the same thing, rush thousands of German troops and heavy artillery to your position to repel the inevitable, colossal assault. There's just one problem. Almost everything you are seeing and everything you are hearing is a complete illusion. You are not witnessing an army of 30,000 men. You are being deceived by an army of just 1,100. An army of artists. This is the story of the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, better known by a name that perfectly captures their mission, the Ghost Army. They were a top-secret unit in the U.S. Army, and their weapons were not bullets and bombs, but imagination, creativity, and theatrical deception on a scale never seen before. The soldiers weren't hardened infantrymen. They were painters, architects, sound engineers, actors, and set designers recruited from the art schools, ad agencies, and sound stages of New York and Philadelphia. Their audacious mission: to impersonate entire U.S. Army divisions, tricking the enemy into moving their forces, chasing ghosts, and leaving the real American armies to advance with fewer casualties. The brainchild of army planners inspired by British success with similar tactics in North Africa, the Ghost Army was activated in January 1944 at Pine Camp, New York. It was a unit unlike any other, composed of two main components. The first was the 603rd Camouflage Engineering Battalion, filled with artists who would handle visual deception. The second was the 3132nd Signal Service Company, comprised of sound technicians who would manage sonic deception. Together, they formed a traveling road show of war, designed to put on the performance of a lifetime for the most dangerous audience in the world, the German Wehrmacht. Their toolkit was ingenious. For visual deception, they didn't have 40-ton steel tanks. They had 93-pound inflatable rubber ones. From a distance, these dummy tanks, planes, and artillery pieces were indistinguishable from the real thing. Up close, you could see the rubber seams, and 4 men could easily lift a Sherman tank and move it to a new position. The artists of the 603rd became masters of illusion. They would not only inflate hundreds of these decoys, but also use bulldozers to create fake tank tracks in the dirt, suggesting a recent and massive armored movement. They painted camouflage on their rubber props with the same care they would have given a canvas in art school. For sonic deception, the 3132nd Signal Company brought the sounds of war. They traveled to Fort Knox to make meticulous, high-fidelity recordings of every sound an armored division makes. The distinct squeal of a Sherman tank's suspension, the clank of pontoon bridge construction, and the casual chatter of soldiers at rest. These sounds were then mixed and edited on state-of-the-art wire recorders, the precursor to tape, and blasted through powerful speakers mounted on half-tracks. At night, they could project these sounds up to 15 miles, creating a perfect audio illusion of a vast army on the move, all from the back of a few trucks. They became conductors of a symphony of deception. But the illusion needed a human touch. This is where the theatrical element came in. The unit would create fake command posts and string up laundry lines to make it look lived in. Specially selected soldiers, chosen for their acting ability, would drive into nearby French towns wearing the patches and insignia of the real division they were impersonating. They would sit in cafes, talking loudly about their upcoming attack and their powerful new weapons, knowing that German spies and local sympathizers were everywhere. They even had a phony general who would motor around in a staff car, adding a layer of authenticity. This part of the mission was called atmospherics, and it was pure, high-stakes theater. Finally, they had spoof radio. Radio operators would mimic the distinct communication styles of the real units they were replacing, sending out a flurry of fake, coded messages to create the impression of a large, active headquarters coordinating thousands of troops. From the beaches of Normandy to the banks of the Rhine, the Ghost Army conducted over 20 battlefield deceptions. They would arrive secretly at night as a real U.S. division quietly pulled out of the line. Over the next 24 to 48 hours, the 1,100 men of the Ghost Army would put on their show, making the Germans believe that a force of 15 to 30,000 men was still there and preparing to attack. It was incredibly dangerous work. They were a small, lightly armed unit, deliberately drawing the attention and the fire of the German army. They were often shelled by artillery aimed at the phantom army they had created. Their grand finale, their masterpiece of deception, was Operation Viersen in March 1945. The U.S. Ninth Army was preparing to make a massive, critical crossing of the Rhine River. To minimize casualties, they needed to draw the German forces away from the real crossing point. This was a job for the Ghost Army. Arriving at the front line, they set up their rubber armada to impersonate two entire divisions, the 30th and 79th. For days, they played their symphony of deception. Hundreds of inflatable tanks and cannons appeared overnight along a 10-mile front. The sonic trucks broadcasted the sounds of an army digging in and preparing for a massive assault. Actors in enemy-facing observation posts pretended to be artillery spotters. The spoof radio nets crackled with false orders. The German command took the bait completely. Convinced that the main American attack was coming directly at the Ghost Army's position, they repositioned several divisions, including elite panzer units and heavy artillery, to face the phantoms. They hammered the empty fields and rubber tanks with everything they had. And while the German army was furiously battling an army of air and sound, miles away, the real Ninth Army crossed the Rhine River with almost no opposition and minimal casualties. The deception had been a spectacular success. After the war, the Ghost Army's existence was immediately classified as top secret. The tactics of sonic and visual deception were deemed too valuable to be made public. The men who served were sworn to secrecy, unable to tell even their families what they truly did. They went back to their lives. Bill Blass became a world-famous fashion designer. Ellsworth Kelly became a celebrated minimalist painter. Others became architects, engineers, and businessmen. For over 50 years, their incredible story remained untold. It wasn't until their records were declassified in 1996 that the world finally learned about the army of artists who fought a war of illusion. Military historians estimate that the creative deceptions of the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops saved between 15,000 and 30,000 American lives. They proved that in the crucible of war, sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't a cannon, but a speaker. Not a tank, but a rubber decoy. And that the boundless creativity of the human mind could be just as mighty as any army on the field.